Hi there, and yep, the dog has not got bigger. I'm just sitting on the ground. It's a beautiful day down here in Canberra, and I went to the nets with my 13-year-old today. Had a good, really good hit out, so I've been thinking about training a little bit. And Henry, my 13-year-old, doesn't really think twice about it. He wants to practice all the time, and it's interesting. He's practiced a lot, and surprisingly enough, he's got a lot better. I think a little plane flew overhead. Buddy likes to chase birds, and he's probably a bit frustrated that he can't catch the plane. Not that clever for a border collie. Anyway, back to the story. Henry practices a lot and gets better. Now think about your team and think about it improving. If your team gets better by a handful of percent, that's useful. It's more productive, it's higher performance, it's better. If they get better by a handful of percent every month or every quarter, that soon enough starts to compound. You know, improvements lay on top of previous improvements and they multiply. If your team just gets a couple of percent better each month, each quarter, in a matter of 3 or 4 years, you're adding 50% to their productivity, to their performance. Now, if you think in terms of sales level or speed of delivery or total capacity, whichever measure is relevant in your business, if you're getting those sorts of improvements, then it is worth doing. And interestingly, it's actually pretty straightforward in most cases to get it. Where I would always start is simply to have regular, frequent, scheduled training with your team. Pretty obvious, really. It's like Henry wants to get better at cricket, so he does training. With your team, and my preference always has been fortnightly. So I've always had scheduled every fortnight for 2 hours a training session with the team. Now, exactly what we train on depends on sometimes the roles they have or the nature of the team. If it's a sales team, you're going to invest a lot of that time doing sales skills practice, sales skills role play, sales skills training of one description or another. If, on the other hand, you've got a finance team, well, you're going to be practicing very different things. Now, I would suggest a couple of tips here. One, schedule ahead. Schedule out the next quarter, for example. Every couple of weeks, schedule out sufficient topics to cover each 2 weeks for the next quarter. And those topics are going to fall in one of 3 categories. One is going to be specific to those roles. If it's a sales team, it's going to be sales skills. The second category might be slightly broader than that team's direct responsibilities. Think about broader industry knowledge or broader skills relating to the whole company strategy, not just that team. And the third category is going to be those sorts of skills, habits, behaviours that are actually useful for everyone. Time management, planning, those sorts of things. Now, map that out in a schedule. Every couple of weeks, you're going to spend a couple of hours. Then you start to do it. Initially, you'll probably do the training. You'll probably lead it. But then after a while, it's going to get a bit boring. You're going to run out of topics to talk about. It's going to get pretty stale. So then you might start to have someone on the team lead it each week. Perhaps somebody leading a session on something they're particularly good at. Sometimes you might sit down and just review a video of someone on the team doing something very well and critiquing it, going through it in detail so others learn from it. Perhaps pick a topic and grab a TED Talk or a YouTube video on it from some expert out there in the world and watch that together and then critique it and talk about it. Sometimes it might be an activity that's useful to actually do an activity. It might be a skill that you and the team can practice, can role play, can run some sort of activity or game about. Sometimes it's an activity where it benefits just to sit down as a team and talk about it. Spend a couple of hours discussing it. So there's so many ways you can do it. Just schedule the topics, come up with a list of who or how you're going to do each one, and there you go, there's your plan. Now, everything I just mentioned is free. It's incredibly straightforward. All it requires is probably maximum half an hour to plan it for the quarter, and the discipline then for you and the team to actually do it, to sit down and do it. The benefit when you've done it once, you've had one training session, it's probably not that great. You won't, well, I doubt, unless it's an amazing training session, you're probably not going to notice incredible, spectacular improvements. But when you've done it 3, 4, 5 times, and then you've done it for 3 months, and then you've done it for a year, it really does multiply together. You get amazing compounding effect, and suddenly your team is getting better by a few percent every quarter. And if they keep doing that, within a couple of years, it's amazing. The increased productivity, the improvement in the business, and all you've done is plan it and make sure that you guys together have actually done it. Now, I often comment on the dog in these videos, but we're staying at Mum and Dad's house in Canberra. It's a much smaller garden than our place, but it seems he has still, the moment I go onto these videos, he starts running around in circles. And this time it is a very small circle, so I might take him out for a walk. But anyway, get planning and get implementing with some training. A couple of hours of training every fortnight. Add up what it would be worth to you if your team had a 5%, a 10%, a 50% within a couple of years. Improvement in productivity and their performance. See what it's worth, get cracking and get doing with it. All the best.